everybody and welcome back. In this video I'm going to be talking about Genie Plus, Genie, lightning lanes, individual lightning lanes and everything associated with it. So we're going to look at what is Genie, Genie Plus, the lightning lanes and all of that sort of stuff. Then I'll talk about how they actually work, and then once I've done that I'll then talk about my thoughts on each of those things and then give a little bit of a summary at the end. So firstly, what is Genie? So they call it Convenient New Itinerary Planning Products. So it is a suite of things, it's a combination of things, and I think sometimes the terms get used interchangeably, so there can be a bit of a confusion about what each part is. So hopefully I can explain that a little bit and it will make it clear as we talk through each of the parts what each thing is. So the first thing to talk about is Genie. Genie is the free part of the service, that is the app that has a lot of the planning tools built into it that you don't have to pay for. So it works basically on your interests and certain things that you set up in the app. So you sort of say what sort of things you're interested in, and then Genie will make recommendations based on that. It also shows you wait times, and if you've got any dining reservations at any table service restaurants it will show those, and as and when you book mobile orders it will also show those as well. You'll have access to the tips board. It will show you wait times, but obviously only on the day when you're actually in the park. Once the park is open, you'll be able to order food through the mobile app thing. You'll be able to join virtual queues for shopping as well, because some of the stores have like digital checkout as well, so you don't have to get in line if you don't want to wait. It is quite time consuming to set it all up in the app, and a lot of it can only be done on the day, so that's one thing to consider. But if you want to make sure that you do everything that's on your list, you can put that list into the app. Genie Plus is the paid part of the service. Disney says this is so that you can enjoy the magic with less wait. We'll come back to that point later. It is $15 plus tax to purchase on the day. If you have a UK Magic ticket, you can add it on for £96 for the duration of your stay. Disney says there are more than 40 attractions that you can use Lightning Lane for. Not everything is included, but there were some things that were also excluded from FastPass. The Lightning Lane function is the same as the FastPass. You tap in at the touch point, you join a shorter line, you tap in at the end, and then you essentially skip the queue. Again, we'll come back to that later. You can use it while park hopping. You can use Lightning Lane, say Magic Kingdom, and then if you hop to Epcot, you will be able to book Lightning Lanes in Epcot as well. But you can only use the Lightning Lane for each ride once, so once you've ridden Small World with a Lightning Lane, you then can't get another Lightning Lane for Small World. It will tell you you've exceeded the number of uses for that day. You book the first one at 7 AM, you can book your second one at 11 AM or after you've used your first one, depending on which one is earlier. Genie Plus also includes the photo pass lenses, and there are audio trails as well, so you can listen to like a little bit of a guided audio tour. I didn't use either of those whilst I was there, so I can't give any feedback on what I thought about those. You then have individual Lightning Lanes, which Disney says are for the more highly demanded attractions, so basically the stuff that's popular that they know people are going to pay more for. Those are the rides that they are for. There are 2 in each park. At the moment with Everest Down there's only 1 in Animal Kingdom. They've also moved for spring break a couple of attractions off the individual Lightning Lane like Space Mountain and Frozen. So I don't think it's going to be a static thing. I think it will flex as the system develops. Maybe seasonally they might alter it, and obviously with new attractions coming in there is the possibility that they will like bump something off. For example, when Guardians of the Galaxy opens at Epcot, I have no doubt that they will bump one of the other 2 rides off and make that an individual Lightning Lane. You get to purchase 2 per day. Now as I said, there's normally 2 in each park, so if you're in one park all day you could ride both of those or pay and ride for both of those. If you park hop, you can either buy both the Lightning Lanes in the park you start in, or both the Lightning Lanes in the park you hop to, or you could buy 1 Lightning Lane in your first park, 1 Lightning Lane in your second park. You cannot ride both Lightning Lanes in both parks, so it's a total allocation of 2 individual Lightning Lanes per day, no matter how many parks you go into. Another key thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is you don't need to buy Genie Plus to be able to buy an individual lightning lane. So even if you haven't paid your $15 or the £96 to add Genie Plus to your ticket, you don't need that in order to be able to buy an individual lightning lane. So you might decide you don't want Genie Plus for the day, but you want to pay to ride Flight of Passage. The system will let you do that. And with individual lightning lanes, this is pretty much, I think, the only advantage on-site guests have with regards to Genie Plus is that as an on-site guest you can purchase individual lightning lanes from 7 AM. Off-site guests can only do it at park open. So if the park opens at 9 or 10, on-site guests have had 2 or 3 hours to already book. And again, we'll look at that in a minute. So now we've talked briefly about what each of those is, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you use each of them before we look at how they actually work in reality. So with Genie, I didn't actually use this that much whilst I was there. I did flag a couple of show times. That was quite useful because I always forget shows and parades and stuff. So I did find it quite useful to, when I was in Animal Kingdom, flag the kite tails, the bird show and the Lion King times so that I kept seeing them on the app when I popped in and I could judge when on my day that I was going to go and do those. If you want to, you can plan in all the attractions that are your go-tos so that you make sure that you definitely fit those in. The app will tell you the best times to go. This is quite a useful feature if you are not sure how to navigate the parks. If you're inexperienced or this is your first trip, it's possibly a good thing to use. It doesn't work if you don't have a ticket linked, so you can't practice it and you can't plan it in advance. You can, once you have a ticket linked, set up your preferences, but what will happen is you will go into the date that you want. You'll pick your preferences, so say for example you pick the attractions that you want to ride and maybe one of the restaurants that you want to eat in. It won't actually give you a suggested itinerary at that point. It will come back and it will say, okay, when you get to the park on that day, we'll tell you what we think you should do. So you can't plan your itinerary in advance using Genie. It won't work like that. I have a ticket linked to my account for September, so I planned it for one of my upcoming days. So thankfully I was able to show you how it actually works in the app. But if you haven't got a ticket linked, you won't be able to set those up, and equally you won't actually be able to get your itinerary in advance because it will just tell you on the day when you go into the park. So for Genie Plus, I added this to my account for the whole trip when I bought my ticket because I had to buy a brand new Magic ticket for my trip in February. So I had it for every single day that I was in the parks. You can select your first lightning lane attraction at 7 AM. So I had an alarm set on my phone for 6:55 every day, regardless of what time I was waking up, so that I remembered 5 minutes before to get the app set up and get in ready. It defaults to Magic Kingdom, so if you're not going to Magic Kingdom, you do need to select the park you want, and then just refresh it at 6:59:59, and it should bring up everything at 7 AM. So it's quite simple. You just select your attraction and you book. Now, obviously, if you've got a specific itinerary timings in mind, you'll have to take into account the timings that are available when you look. So it will show you the next window that's available, because obviously other people are booking them at other times. The more popular rides will probably be available later in the day. If you pick something that's less popular, like say for example the Bug's Life in Animal Kingdom, you're probably going to get that fairly close to park open because everyone's going to be trying to book the lightning lanes for everything else first. So your first one you'll have locked in at 7 AM. You then have to wait until either 11 AM or you've tapped in at the second touch point for your 7 AM lightning lane, whichever comes first. So if you go into the park and the park opens at 9 and you've got a lightning lane for 9:30, after you've touched in for that at 9:30 or whatever point in the window you go, you will be able to select another one. So quite often what I was doing is touching at the second touch point, I'd then whip out my phone and I'd then go on the app and I would then book my next one. The window is an hour long. You can turn up a couple of minutes early. I did turn up to the safari 12 minutes early once and she wouldn't let me in. It actually went blue. The reason that happened was because I actually lost track of time. I had no idea what time it was. I didn't try and slightly miss a window and go late, so I don't know whether it does cut off exactly at the time. But if you tap in a couple of minutes early, then it will let you in early. So tips that I would suggest is you need to balance whether you want to do as many lightning lanes as you possibly can by booking all the stuff that is the soonest lightning lane possible. So say you're looking at 11 a.m. and you've got lightning lanes for 11:30, 11:45 and midday on 3 different attractions, but then you've also got one of the more high in demand attractions, like say for example Splash Mountain, where it might be 5 o'clock for the next available lightning lane. You need to balance whether you think you're going to be able to fit in a few of the sooner ones and leave it a little bit longer to book Splash Mountain so you haven't got so much of a wait if you don't want to wait that 2 hours. But the risk you run there is what happened to me at Hollywood Studios, is 4:30 for Tower of Terror. I thought, no, I'm going to do Star Tours and Muppets and things like that so I can get them done quickly, and I'll get Tower of Terror later. And then the next time I went onto the app, maybe an hour later, all of the Tower of Terror lightning lanes had gone, so I didn't get to ride it that day. So you just need to juggle. Would you rather do all of the bigger attractions and have longer gaps between your lightning lane reservations, or do you want to do all of the little things without waiting for them and get a lot of them done sooner and then try and get other stuff later or stand in the longer standby lines? So you need to kind of juggle that out. I obviously can't tell you which one works best. It's going to be what you prefer. I kind of did a combination of both, but what I would recommend is if there is something like Tower of Terror or Rock and Roller Coaster, one of what I call the big ones, that you do want to ride, I would book it early in the day when you know that it's going to be available. Don't wait too long, because after 2 hours, say it's 10 a.m. and you book one for 4 o'clock, by midday you'll be able to book another lightning lane for something else, and that one will still sit there for 4 o'clock. So yes, okay, it's a pain that you're going to have to wait those 2 hours initially, but then after that, then you can start stacking all of your shorter ones and do all of the little rides in between. So that's probably my recommendation, but again, that's really down to personal choice. Another tactic that I employed, and again, I'm not saying this is right and it's not going to work for everybody, but something that worked for me, was those rides that you can book at 7 a.m. I picked the attractions that maybe are slightly less in demand but have longer waits for them. So things that I wouldn't want to wait a long time for but enjoy riding. So things like Peter Pan, The Haunted Mansion, Soarin', Navi River Journey, Tower of Terror, Rock and Roller Coaster. Those are the rides that I would suggest you get at 7 a.m. because those are the rides that you know are going to be popular. So they're going to have lines, but their lightning lanes are also going to go really, really quickly. So prioritise which one of those you want to go on. The reason I don't list Test Track is because I go solo, so I can do single rider on Test Track. If you want to ride Test Track, I would absolutely recommend that you book Test Track first. Obviously, other than that, I've only used it for 8 days, so you know, I learned a little bit about it, but I haven't by any means become an expert, so these are just sort of the suggestions that I found, so hopefully they're useful. So the way that the Genie Plus reservations work is you go into the app, you select your park that you're going to for that day. It doesn't default unless you're in Magic Kingdom, in which case it's great. If you're not in Magic Kingdom, you need to select the park that you're in order to get the correct list of attractions up. It will come up and it will have the list of attractions and it will show you what the next available window is for the lightning lane for that attraction. My advice would be have the attraction that you want in mind before you go on so you can do it as quickly as possible. Or if you aren't sure and you want to see which ones have the shortest or the closest window to park opening, pick maybe 2 or 3 attractions. Because if you spend 5 minutes scrolling through the app trying to weigh up your options, your times are going to be increasing incrementally and you're going to lose out. So I would have in mind what you want to do before you refresh. To refresh, you can just drag down the tip board and it will refresh all of the wait times. Or sometimes I found that I had to go into the other tab, go back into the tip board, select the park, and then it would happen. So it's fairly simple once you know what you're looking at. You get each attraction, it's in alphabetical order, it just shows you the next available lightning lane window. At 7 a.m. it won't have park wait times on it. Once the park has opened, when you can see what time your lightning lane window is going to be booked for, you can also see what the wait time is. So you might look at, let's say, Dumbo, and the lightning lane isn't available for half an hour, but it's only got a 15-minute standby wait time. So at that point you might think, okay, actually I'm going to go standby for 15 minutes, because if I book the lightning lane I'm going to have to wait longer than if I went in the standby line. So that is quite a useful tool that helps you weigh up whether it's worth booking the lightning lane on that attraction at that point in time or not. do refresh throughout the day, you will see them pop up where people have cancelled them. So it is possible to find, for example, when I was there, a Tower of Terror one, if it's been sold out, but you do have to persevere, and you're probably going to be spending most of the day on your phone if you do that. Individual lightning lanes, on-site guests can purchase at 7 AM, off-site guests can purchase at park open. This means Hollywood Studios, which was opening at 9 AM, in the 2 hours between 7 and 9, all of the Rise of the Resistance lightning lanes were booked by on-site guests. Makes perfect sense. Okay, that's fine. It's probably the only downside to staying off-site at the moment, really. Everything else that I wanted to purchase an individual lightning lane for, I was able to. So I did Flight of Passage on 2 separate days. I did Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and I did Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Talk about a little bit why I didn't do the others later. But if you're staying off-site, you need to be prepared that if you're booking an individual lightning lane at Park Open, it might be 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. The good thing is it doesn't affect your other lightning lane reservations through Genie Plus, so it doesn't really matter. If you're going to be in the park all day, then it's fine. For me, my last day was at Hollywood Studios and I needed to leave at midday, so there was no point in me trying to get a Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway individual lightning lane, because I knew that it was going to be sort of 4, 5, 6 PM before the times came up and I wouldn't be able to ride it. So it depends on whether your day is a full park day or whether you're hopping or whether you've got a short day as to whether it's worth trying to purchase at Park Open as an off-site guest. Obviously I can't comment what the experience is like as an on-site guest, but you will be more likely to get Rise of the Resistance than an off-site guest who has pretty much no chance at the moment. Do be aware that the prices do fluctuate, so I paid $14 for Flight of Passage on Friday, and then I paid $11 for it on the Monday, which is only 3 days later. Do bear in mind that the prices you see in the app don't include tax, so if it says $11, you're going to pay $11.41 when you get charged for it. I don't think a lot of people realise that, but that is just something to consider. In total, over 9 days, I spent $45.80 on individual lightning lanes, and that was for 4 rides across the 9 days. So I only used it 4 times basically. For the individual lightning lane, it's exactly the same process. The attraction will be listed in the same list of attractions, but instead of showing that it's bookable by lightning lane, it will show that there's a cost attached for the individual lightning lane. It will show you how much that costs, and then you book it. There's a slightly longer confirmation process with the individual lightning lanes, because obviously it confirms that you need to have your credit card linked to the account, that it will charge your account, you confirm the purchase, and then it confirms your lightning lane for you. Whereas with just the standard lightning lanes, it will just go ahead and confirm it like a fast pass used to. So now we've talked about what it is and how it works, let's talk about what I think about it. I'm going to be honest, it sucks. I am used to fast pass. Eventually maybe I'll adapt to use this new system, but there are a lot of barriers, and yeah, I think it's not ready. But unfortunately I'm impatient, and I've grown up with the fast pass system, and I am now too impatient to wait in standby lines, so kind of stuck. If I want to skip lines, I have to pay for it. So Disney have got us over a bit of a barrel with that one, really. That's my really unhelpful subjective point of view. Let me tell you a little bit around why I think that. Yes, fast pass used to be free. Fast pass isn't coming back, so there's not really much point in lamenting that, really. Plus, additionally, when Walt Disney World opened in 1971, your entrance ticket got you into the park. If you wanted to ride certain attractions, you had to pay for them. There was a booklet of tickets that went from A through to E, hence the term E-ticket attraction, and the value of the E-ticket was more expensive than the value of the A-ticket. Disney charged for the attractions based on the demand for those attractions, and you had to pay for them separately to ride. So yes, we're now paying for something that used to be free, but we're paying for something that used to be free that used to be charged for before it was free. So we shouldn't really forget that. I don't necessarily agree with it, I don't like it, but it is a fact. It's not new. Disney have done this before, so it isn't something they've never done before. So my constructive thoughts are, I hardly used Genie. You can't use it to plan in advance. So if you want to get an itinerary for your day before you get to the park, it doesn't do that. It's also very time and screen intensive, so you pretty much have to be on your phone the entire time you're in the park in order to get the most out of it, which is one of the reasons why I didn't really use it. And if you want to plan something in advance, I would get a couple of guidebooks, watch a few YouTube videos, and come up with your own plans. And it means you don't spend the whole day on your phone, which, apart from the fact that if you're not travelling solo, it means that you actually get to speak to the people you're with. The bits that I did use, I flagged a couple of shows in Animal Kingdom. So when I was looking to book a lightning lane time, it would remind me and show me what shows I wanted to see so that I didn't forget. The downside is you can't cancel them. So if you change your mind, you can't get rid of it. Plus, also, once it's passed, it stays on. So I selected Kite Tales at 11:30 just to remind myself that that's when it was on. I happened to miss Kite Tales at 11:30, so I then wanted to flag it for later in the day. But every time I logged in, I still had the 11:30 one there as well. And the more you've got on there, it doesn't drop off once the time has passed. So you just end up building a list of things that you have to scroll through. So rather than being a quick reference, it actually becomes a pain. So I wish they would build in a feature where you could just delete it and go, actually, no, I don't want that anymore. Having said that, there might actually be a way to do it, but I just didn't figure it out. So if you know how to do it, let me know, because that could also be the problem. The recommendations are weird, but I didn't put any preferences. So it was just kind of telling me stuff that I should do based on what had the lowest wait times or the shortest waits for food. But they were random and things I wouldn't do at the times it was recommending that I would do them, knowing what I know about the way the parks work. Skeptics out there say that this is because they want to drive people to stuff with low wait times to share people around. Can't confirm or deny that because I didn't really pay much attention to it. I didn't really use it that much, really, just the general features. I didn't use the photo pass lenses and I didn't use the audio trails. Personally, overall, the Genie content of it, the free stuff, you don't need it. It's surplus to requirements, really. There is a chat function, and I went into the bird show in Animal Kingdom and I had an issue with Genie. So I thought, oh, instead of having to track to find someone from guest relations after the show, I'll send them a message and then maybe during the show they'll send me the answer so that once I'm done here, I'll be done. So I sent the message, I watched the show, it was great, I went off on my way, and it wasn't, so that was about, I think it was about 1:30 that I sent the message. It wasn't until the next morning I noticed there was a notification on the app. I was like, oh, what's that? So I clicked on it. Somebody responded to my question at 9:30 p.m, which was 2.5 hours after the park had closed. So obviously I hadn't looked in the app after 7 p.m. when the park closed, and I didn't see it until the next morning when I logged on at 5 to 7 to book my 7 a.m. lightning lane, by which point it was totally redundant because I'd already been to guest relations about an hour after I sent the message and sorted it out. So the chat function is useless, don't bother using it, you're not going to get an answer on the same day that you send the query. Genie Plus, and most of the app all around, is not intuitive. The interface isn't great. It took me probably 2 to 3 days to figure out how it worked. Up until that point I was just randomly clicking to get it to go to places because I couldn't figure it out. Yes, okay, maybe I'm too impatient and I didn't take the time to learn how to do it, but really I think if you're enhancing the guest experience and giving a planning tool, then people actually need to be able to use it fairly easily. And there are some technological things that I'm not great at, but I am not a dinosaur, I don't think. So it's difficult to navigate, personally, I think, anyway. It's very buggy, it glitches, it kicks you out. It logged me off so many times, and 50% of those times, even though I'd said remember me, it didn't, and I had to put in my username and password again and set up the Touch ID again. Twice over the course of 9 days I had to delete and reinstall the app because it wouldn't work at all. Even just closing it down, going back into it, logging out, logging back in didn't work, so I had to uninstall the app twice and reinstall it. In the 9 days I had 2 trips to guest relations to resolve issues with it. The first time it lost all my memory maker credentials, so it started putting watermarks on all of my photographs and saying that I had to purchase them, so I had to go to guest relations. The next time it switched tickets, so instead of using the ticket, and actually thank goodness I hadn't already attached Genie Plus to my second ticket, because if I had, I wouldn't have known this had happened. But halfway through the day I just suddenly stopped being able to book lightning lanes, and it told me I didn't have Genie Plus. So I went to guest relations, and although it had selected the correct ticket when I tapped into the park, halfway through the day it just switched to my other ticket that I had for September. Thank goodness I noticed, because if I hadn't, I would have gone out in September and I wouldn't have had a valid ticket, because it used one of my 14-day tickets for the first 4 days, and then on day 5 it switched to the second 14-day ticket, which would have expired after 14 days if I hadn't used them. So I would have used half of both tickets, and I would have had to have bought another ticket on the gate when I turned up in September. So I'm really glad I didn't attach Genie Plus to it before I went, because I never would have known. I would have just been using the second ticket and not even realised. So yeah, factor in guest relations time, because you're probably going to have to go to guest relations a couple of times. So I ended up going to the main guest relations in Hollywood Studios, the main guest relations in Animal Kingdom. The Animal Kingdom fix meant I had to go back to guest relations on my last day to revert a temporary fix they'd put in to halt my tickets. That's now 3 trips to guest relations, and twice I had to go to Blue Umbrella people, who were also guest relations, but with blue umbrellas around the park. So it did take up a lot of my time trying to resolve issues with the app where it wasn't working properly. 7 AM is a pain. If you're going to Epcot and you want to lie in until 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, you've still got to get up at 7 AM and book your lightning lane to make sure you get something. When the parks open later, having to be up at 7 AM for some people I know is going to be a pain. The time it gives you when you select the lightning lane and decide you want to book the window is not always the time that you get. If you're looking throughout the day and you see Small World has got an open window in 15 minutes time, then it is not booking very fast, and it probably is going to be the time that you book. At 7 AM, I don't think I once got the return time that it said on the screen when I booked it, because there are so many people trying to book it at the same time, it can't process the time quick enough, and that happened a lot of times. So you need to be prepared that when you book a lightning lane return time, I would say 50% of the time you're not going to get the time that you've booked, because the app isn't reflective of the actual time. So that's something that you need to bear in mind. You only get 1 lightning lane chance for each attraction for each day. So once you've ridden the lightning lane for Small World, if you want to ride Small World a second time, you have to go standby. You can't book another one. So it's once per day per attraction. This means you need to weigh it up when you use it. Again, this is where the sort of strategy comes in. If you want to ride Dumbo twice in a day, you're better off not using the lightning lane pass when it's only got a 15-minute wait, because later on the day when you go back for your second time, you might find it has a 60-minute wait. But because you've already used your lightning lane on that really short time, you now can't use another one, and you're going to have to wait in the standby. So if that's what you want to do, then I would suggest, if it's a really short wait, the first time you get there, ride it standby, and then book it lightning lane later on in the day. Lightning implies quick, the same way that fast pass implies quick. Sometimes, if the wait times on an attraction are 5, 10, 15 minutes, the lightning lane wait is the same as the standby wait. I don't think I walked on to anything with a lightning lane unless it was a walk-on in the standby as well. So the Living Seas and Mission Space are the two that spring to mind immediately, where I tapped in and I was like, the cast members were laughing at me because everybody knew that there was no point in me using the lightning lane, because I could have just walked on standby. Best use for the lightning lane ever. But I was going to use it. I had it, so I was going to use it. But almost everything else I used it for, I think I waited at least 5 minutes. Navi River Journey, when I joined the line after I tapped in, the line was pretty much at the entrance to the lane. The cast member said it was probably about a 20-minute wait. I think it was slightly shorter than that, but I think it was certainly more than 10 minutes. So don't expect to walk on with lightning lanes. I would factor in at least 15 minutes wait with a lightning lane. When the park is busy, you're likely to wait longer. So the Haunted Mansion, I actually joined the standby line, but the lightning lane queue went all the way back out of Haunted Mansion and all the way back past the ferryboat dock down towards Columbia Harbour House and back down that way. It was long. It was probably at least 20 minutes, so don't expect lightning lanes to be lightning fast, because they're definitely not. You do get anytime lightning lane passes if your ride is broken down. So at 7 AM I managed to book a Tower of Terror lightning lane. Come park open at 9 o'clock, the ride wasn't open. They'd obviously decided the ride wasn't going to open in time, and they sent me an anytime pass, which is fantastic. The only thing you need to keep an eye on, I got one in Animal Kingdom. So on my account I had an anytime, any park lightning lane pass. So I'd booked, when I got to the park, I booked a lightning lane for Navi River Journey, and it was for about 4 PM. And I had a flight, I paid for Flight of Passage individual lightning lane, so I thought while I'm here in Pandora, I will use my anytime pass just to do Navi River Journey, because Flight of Passage and all the individual lightning lanes were excluded from my free one, even though it had come from Rise of the Resistance. So about 11 AM I tapped in to use my anytime pass to ride Navi River Journey, rode it, and then about 2 o'clock I noticed my 4 o'clock lightning lane booking had disappeared for Navi River Journey. So I went to guest relations and I was like, I booked a lightning lane for Navi River Journey for 4 o'clock, and I'd actually screenshotted it luckily. I would recommend this. Anything you really want to ride, like Navi River Journey, screenshot your passes. Because I showed it to them, I was like, look, I booked this and now it's disappeared. And when he looked into my account, when I tapped in at 11 o'clock, it used my 4 o'clock booking, not the anytime pass. Now the good thing about that is I could use my anytime to go back on whenever I wanted for Navi River Journey. The worrying thing is that it used a pass for 6 hours in advance and it couldn't tell the difference. So when I got an anytime pass for Tower of Terror, I didn't want to ride another lightning lane attraction until I'd used that anytime pass on Tower of Terror, because if I'd have tapped in for, say, Star Tours with a Star Tours lightning lane, it might have taken my anytime pass instead, and I would have had to go to guest relations and sort it out. And I'm sure they would have sorted it out and put it back on so I could ride Tower of Terror, but why would I want that faff? So if you get an anytime pass, just be really careful. If you don't immediately use that before you use another lightning lane, just check that when you tap in for the lightning lane you have booked, it hasn't taken your anytime pass off instead, because that was a big hassle too. So I think that's probably it for Genie Plus. In terms of individual lightning lanes, that didn't really glitch for me, that worked fine. I managed to book the ones I wanted to book. I knew I was never going to get Rise of the Resistance. One thing I would say though is it's not necessarily worth it. So on my first day I booked a lightning lane pass for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train because the park shut at 4. The wait time was around 75-80 minutes most of the day, so I used it. My second day in Magic Kingdom, the fireworks were on, the park closed later, so I didn't buy a lightning lane for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. I like watching the fireworks from the back by Enchanted Tales with Belle, and in COVID time I didn't want to stand in the hub or on Main Street with however many 100,000 people that were also watching, so I watched it from the back, which meant I was about a 30-second walk from the entrance to Seven Dwarfs Mine Train when the fireworks finished. So I got in line, the fireworks finished, I walked around, I got in line, it said 60 minutes, I can't remember how long I waited, I think it was half an hour, or was it 25 minutes? Certainly wasn't an hour, and it certainly wasn't a wait that I was cross with having to wait for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. So I would say if you are there on a day when the park is open longer, plus a day when you don't mind watching the fireworks, just get in line for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train when the fireworks are on, or just after they've finished, because you'll wait a really short time. It'll be the shortest wait of the day for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Equally, Space Mountain. My second day, Space Mountain, the wait time didn't drop below 100 minutes the whole day. It was crazy because it was shut in the morning, it was broken down, so the demand was ridiculous. The first day I was there, I walked on it twice. The first time it had a wait time of 25 minutes, the second time 15 minutes, and I walked on both times. I would have been really upset if I'd have paid because when you look on the app, you would have seen on the app that it was a 25-minute wait, and you might have thought, okay, I don't want to wait 25 minutes for it, I'm going to pay for it. But that 25 minutes actually isn't, it was a walk-on. So I didn't pay for Space Mountain. Rise of the Resistance. Here's the kicker. You can't, as an off-site guest, rope drop Rise of the Resistance, because the wait time will be somewhere between 2 and 3 hours by the time the park opens to off-site guests. As an on-site guest, if you're at the front, by all means go for it. You might get on within half an hour, an hour. I don't know. I'm never ever going to be able to tell you that. I can't verify it. I got in line at 7:30 on a night that the park shut at 9. It had a posted wait time of 75 minutes and I waited 35 minutes. So, you know, it is epic. It's the most awesome thing I've ever experienced in my life, and I would pay for it if I could have access to the individual Lightning Lane booking. But equally, there are ways to ride it without waiting more than an hour. You can ride it with a shorter wait time if you plan it right, because everybody rushes there first thing. As the day goes on, the line gets shorter, but the wait time posted doesn't necessarily. So I would say if you really, really want to ride it, get in line in the last hour of park opening, and you probably won't wait the posted wait time. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, again, is another one. I booked it on my first day, and so I booked the Runaway Railway, which came out about 6 p.m. I think. The next time I went to Hollywood Studios, Runaway Railway is brilliant, so I'm going to stand in line for it. And it was showing a wait time of 60 minutes, and I think I waited about 20-25 minutes. So equally, you know, paying for that when you can only wait half an hour, again, I think for quite a lot of the individual Lightning Lane rides, there are ways to ride them without waiting more than an hour if you time it right. Ratatouille, I think I waited 45 minutes for. Frozen, I rope dropped, off-site guest rope drop, and posted time was 45 minutes, and I waited 12 minutes. So you kind of need to weigh up what you want. If you just want quick and easy and no bother and having that reassurance, then by all means pay for the individual Lightning Lanes. But if it's going to make a difference to how much your trip is going to cost, and there's a lot of you, and you're flexible on being in the park for a long time, and you are prepared to wait a certain amount of time, there are ways you can ride those attractions without waiting the 2 or 3 hours that they are sometimes posted at. So that is just my advice. So overall, it sucks. The functionality is poor. It's a lot of screen time. It's hard work. You'll end up in guest relations a lot. It's not a fast pass. It's not a front of the line pass. You are going to have to wait for a lot of them. You can't choose the times that you pick. You get what's available. Obviously the cost. People say they inflate the wait times. I saw that sometimes. I didn't see it other times. I did lots of walking when I was trying to do as many Lightning Lanes as possible backwards and forwards, just going to wherever the next Lightning Lane was. One day I walked 18 miles using that tactic. In terms of when you can book with a 2-hour gap, I mean that when the park is busy, you'll get your 7 a.m. one, you'll then get your 11 a.m. one, and then depending on how long the park is open for, you'll probably get 1 or 2 more in. So when the park is busy, I think you'll probably get 3 or 4 Lightning Lanes in a day. And my view of it is that it only works when the park is quiet, which kind of defeats the purpose of it. If lines are between sort of 30 minutes and 60 minutes, you'll probably get to use Lightning Lanes for most of the attractions. Anything busier than that, you'll get a few throughout the day, and by the time you get to your 3rd or your 4th one, you're going to be looking at things like the Teacups, the Speedway, Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor, It's a Bug's Life, Figment, those sorts of things, Mission Space. So it's a gamble really as to how many you'll get to do. I need to count again how many Lightning Lanes I managed to use each day, and maybe I'll give a rough estimate of what I felt the crowd level was like as well, just so that we can see that. Hopefully they're taking feedback from people. Hopefully they are working on these glitches. Hopefully it will improve over time. Would I still add it to my next trip? Yes, probably, because I'm impatient and I don't like standing in standby lines. But am I impressed with it? Absolutely not. It's awful. I really don't have anything nice to say about it, I'm afraid, and that's why I haven't made this video yet, because I didn't want to be all like, ugh. But I am. I'm not impressed with it. It's not a Disney standard product. It doesn't improve the experience from what I've experienced, and I don't think I'm alone in that. So we'll see how we get on in September. Is it value for money? Only you can decide that. Only you can tell yourself what value you place on each attraction and the wait time versus walking on. I wish this was a really positive video and I could say that it's great and nobody needs to worry, because yes, although we mourn the loss of FastPass, which we all were able to use brilliantly, I can't, and I'm not going to lie. But the one thing I will say is that it is new, so let's hope that all of these glitches and issues are down to the fact that it's new. And what I'll probably do after September is give an update and just do a little bit of an update on whether I think it's changed or improved or not since my last trip. Anyway, I'm going to end this video here. I hope it was at least in some ways helpful, and I will see you soon.